I'm so glad you've joined us today, Sebastian Jeffrey. Love to see you here. I'm sure we'll have other people join us. It's just that transition time as people leave one meeting and join another. It is my pleasure to introduce Angelique and Dimitri with Airvote today. Their product, when I first saw it, and I don't remember how I met the two of you. I think you joined one of our other events, and somehow we got connected that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their product, though, I started my healthcare career as a registered dietitian, which quickly moved me into support services. So I oversaw food services in healthcare and EVS for a short period of time in healthcare. And so I have a passion for support services. And as I've worked the last decade in patient experience, so much of what we do in that field forgets our support services teams. And in part, how we forget them is in collecting information that they can use to improve how they're offering their services across healthcare. So specifically, when I think about in the hospitals, food services, I ran patient dining for a number of years, and to be able to actually hear directly from the patient when they're getting that meal, not as a comment to a survey that they receive after they've been discharged. If we can solve those issues that they're experiencing in the moment, it would be so valuable to the patient and for ourselves. And then, of course, for EVS, the work that they do in direct care of our patients, but also in care of the facility in general, to be able to get feedback immediately and to know where that feedback is coming from, whether it's to the person or the patient's room or to the bathroom stall, to be able to know exactly what's going on is so valuable. So when I saw this, I thought, there is a solution to that gap for healthcare. So it is my privilege and honor to be able to introduce you to Angelique and Dimitri and have them demonstrate for you Airvote. So I'm going to hand it over to the two of you, and I'll watch the waiting room so you guys don't have to worry about that any longer.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Denise, for having us, and also everyone joining us, taking the time to learn a little bit more about Airvote. And first of all, like Denise said, my name is Angelique, and I'm here together with Dimitri. Full name Angelique Denneman, and I do the marketing and the sales here in the US, and then we also have a team in Europe. Dimitri is the brain behind Airvote. We are a relatively young company. We started in 2019, and we started in restaurants, also in zoos, in parks. From parks, we ended up in the sanitation world. And this is all feedback based on QR codes. Then about, I think now a good year ago, we got actually a first request in the healthcare industry to run a pilot, and really are learning more and more, what the need is of real-time feedback. And like what Denise pointed out, what really makes us unique. And Dimitri, if you want to go to the next slide. So what is actually our biggest value? Our presentation is based on a reader or a display. And this really, as soon as the patient scans, the facility or the restaurant or your team gets an instant notification by text or by email, and you can respond to it. And better than we do, normal reports come in maybe after 2 weeks, after 4 weeks. So now that's actually the biggest difference what we kind of offer. So that's actually what our biggest value is in Airvote. Where do you find us? Different places within the organization. It can be in the cafeteria. There can be a little display with 3 QR codes. You can find us in the restroom, in each stall, and in the waiting room. Maybe you already have seen us, we're out there in different airports too, in each stall. So there are different ways how you can find us. And there are different questions.
Can I back you up for just a sec there? Can you?
Oh, sure.
I'm watching the languages on that one image. What languages do you offer?
That's a great question. Actually, this is one of the what we offer in LA. They really had the need since they have, if I'm correct, Dimitri, it's Mexican, Japanese, and
It's a Spanish. This particular example is in Spanish, Japanese, Tagalog, Korean, and Armenian. We do have and this is just the display, the front end. Our system is localized in 6 languages. So that means that the screen, when the people scan the QR code, it would talk to them, say in French, German, depending on the default setting on their cell phone.
Okay. So the video was circling and giving us the different languages for that question there. But could the user or the person who's scanning, do they select what language they need?
This particular example is just rolling through the languages. Oftentimes, if like in California, for example, in some of the hospitals, the public the population has specific language preferences, like Armenian. So, and that is basically the idea here. It would be displayed like on a digital screen, like a small TV screen, and it would roll through the languages so that they can see their own language. Same QR code. QR codes, if you could notice, don't change. It just changed the wrapper around them in their own language. Oftentimes, people come into the hospitals, as you know very well, they are non-native English speakers, especially when they're older. It's hard for them to really read and understand English. That's the idea.
Thank you. Sorry for that pause, but that just caught my eye.
Yeah, no, great question. It's already so common for us, and actually we should know that you can hear from my accent, being Dutch and even going to the hospital myself and experience, you know, when they ask you something in a different language, in English, what's not even your own language, it's like, wow. So that's what we really found out in LA, what their needs were. And that's what we're really trying to do. We're not here to change your process. We really, what you would like to know from your patient instantly, those are the questions we ask. So for example, on the, hey, you mentioned the food tray or in the cafeteria, how is our food on service today? And also in a general question, you know, how do you feel about the quality of our care? And in each stall, what's the impression of this restroom? These options can all be changed. If we really want to have the idea that it feels like a button, you know, people sit down, we catch them in the moment, they scan, cast a vote, and they go again. And each set of QR codes, as you see, is unique. Well, we cannot see it with the AI, but in the, for example, you see the number where Dimitri is pointing at, and each number is unique. So that makes that we know exactly where the vote is coming from. For example, from the cafeteria downstairs, or the men's room, floor number 3, stall number 2. So you know exactly where it comes from. And like I mentioned, everything is, we can adjust it to your needs. Any question you want, also the options. We really like to have the presentation of 3 options, but some of our customers say, hey, you know what, I just want to have a yes and a no option. Like, you know, where we ask a particular question, and that's kind of what our needs are. So Dimitri will take over and he will show a little bit how does it really look like. You know, there is this reader, this display with a question, and feel free also to grab your camera. You probably all know how it works to scan the QR code. So Dimitri will take over from here.
Well, and Angelique, that's what I was just going to say, because of course, the first thing I did was pick up my phone and play with it to see if this really worked. And it did. And I'm saying this because I'm hoping those people on the call with us will do the same, because that page it takes you to where you can actually identify what's going on. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that is what I was planning to do, to just pull up the cell phone next to it. Since the context mostly is in facilities area. So we can look at these two examples. Really, as you saw in the picture, and Angelique mentioned, for example, it can be in cafeteria as a table tent, or on a table, or in the restroom stall. That's where the mess happens. That's the actionable and the really valuable feedback comes from. A person can be in the restroom. So if I'm, for example, in the restroom, I see the display right next to me in the restroom stall itself, not in the hand wash area, in the stall itself. All I do is pull up my camera. Nowadays, camera recognizes QR codes, and if a person is happy, right now the facility already have the feedback. The feedback is just like pressing a button. It may look and act like pressing a button, but beyond pressing a button, we gently pull them into the conversation. Do you want to say something about it? Do you want to go to social media? You see service history button here in the bottom that also gives an option, brings that little paper from the, say, restroom door. The service history with the check marks can bring it into the stall itself.
Oh.
When was it serviced last? So that means it's an optional thing. It's an add-on that allows people to change perceptions. You know, especially when there is something wrong, they're not quick to blame the facility. Oh, it's so dirty. But if they see it was serviced 20 minutes ago, it changes their mindset into being helpful. Hey guys, there is a mess here. Obviously, somebody just made a mess. Yep. You may wanna do something about it. And here's the picture. And that's how it works. Is just like that. If somebody is unhappy, just point, tap, and have right away the relevant options. Again, the service history is here, but relevant options, like if there is say no toilet paper, we have a lot of people, good 100% of comments we get are really good comments. We have hundreds of responses coming daily with pictures of empty toilet paper rolls. For the team, it is an action that is worth 1,000 words. That's why when they tap, we just open the camera right away, inviting them to take a picture. They take a picture, use, bam. Now the team has it for the trend reporting, and also the real-time alerts through the email or cell phone, say shift cell phone, as a text message can come in right away to say, hey, this is the exact location, and that's what the person said. They can also say, oh, it has a foul odor, so there is no picture to take of a smell, so they can tap on the smell. Right. And we don't open the camera for them. It's they can if there is something specific they wanted to capture, but so that, and they always have an opportunity to leave their information.
And so yeah. That information has already been sent. The down below, the arrow is only if you also want to put a comment. Is that right? Awesome. Okay.
Everything is the moment you scan the information there. Everything else is add-on, updating the response. That's a great question.
Perfect.
Dmitry, to add another question, Sebastian is asking if the QR code is only printed, or is there an option to have them on a display on some sort of screen? So, for example, in a restaurant or...
Absolutely. Yes, that's a great question as well. So like we let me back up in here. That's one of the examples of the display that is on a tablet. It can be the displays don't, how we display the QR code, it doesn't matter. It is completely to the option. Oftentimes what we see, especially we see in airports, you know, there are LCD displays. There is a big TV in the waiting area. What do they show on that TV? It's only information is being pushed to the customer, news or advertisements. There is really, have you ever seen on TV screen that is actually asking the customer to do something? Same thing with Airvote. It can actually use that, that moment that otherwise would use for advertisement. Just use that, say 15 seconds to show and ask the person their feedback. So short answer is, Sebastian, yes, it can be, and it can be customizable to whichever it is. For example, if it's on a tablet, this can also be buttons. You can tap on them. If you tap on them, of course, you lose this additional thing like going to social media because you're not working on your own device. But it's quick, so you can have both tap and scan in one place. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt. There's so many things coming up at the same time. The ability to link to social media in healthcare use, can that be disconnected? Just because I know so often in healthcare, we want to be very mindful of anything that is HIPAA related. So we might want to be viewing things before it would go out beyond our walls.
Makes sense. The way that just to demonstrate how it would work so that it is clear. For example, food and service.
Yep.
The Google page in here. Right now, everything is anonymous. So by default, the anonymity is preserved. A person can always tap, I want to hear back, check the box. Oh, sorry, I'm actually not showing the phone.
There you go.
Showing the phone, sorry. So if you, let me quickly do this again. If somebody is, any vote they take is anonymous. They can always tap, I want to hear back on this, check the box. It gives them an option to identify themselves. But by default, people are anonymous. When they go to Google and tap on Google, on Google page, that would really bring them into their own Google, whatever the Google account they sign in. So now they're really out of Airvote. They are in Google. If they're not signed in Google, or it will give them the sign-in box, sign in with Google. So in that sense, what my point is, it's disconnected from Airvote at this time, and it's their choice. It's the link they want. They went to Google or Facebook, whichever is connected, or the hospital website, and then they operate in the credentials of what they have on their device.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dmitry.
Yeah, so that's how it works. And if you see, for example, if food and service context, if they are unhappy, it's of course the relevance of the options to the food and service. Was it long wait? Was it food? And also, if it's food, we give them opportunity to take a picture or hygiene. For the service, they can just tap service, but they can always take a picture if they wanted to, tap again and take a picture. But we don't necessarily open the camera. Like, for example, hygiene, we want to know what's the hygiene problem they're seeing right now, something like that. So that's the idea, the front end, kind of the user interface. Before I move on to the reporting side, any questions about the user side of it? Anything that you want to know? No? Okay, then I'll move on to the reporting.
Excellent.
And on the back end, as I mentioned, it comes in with as real-time alerts. It's optional. Like Angelique said, I think earlier, that we're not there to change the process. Oftentimes, initially, especially, people say, hey, I don't want my team to be randomized. So we just gather information quietly and to review as a trend. Some, though, they really jump on the idea and they say, hey, I want my shift cell phones to know. Then they can get emails, text messages with real-time alerts. And the idea is that, especially for multiple facilities, the idea is central governance and local control. So every facility has their own. The permissions are set up that every facility can be set up separately with separate access, seeing their own data, seeing their own feedback, but everything can go under the umbrella of the corporate. So that means that you have the guidance, organizational guidance, and seeing the data across the facilities and being able to compare, like you see here on the map, even geographically, say why this area is always green in the southwest, and what can we learn from them, or maybe there is recognition there that can happen, or here in the northeast, maybe we need to train something. There is quite a bit of feedback on certain category.
That's cool.
The information is both real-time and also for analytics to compare. Each facility sees their own data and they see what the organization sees. So when they talk, it's easier to drive the improvements by really having objective data instead of just saying, oh, you need to change your schedules, says the central team. Just show the data. Hey, you tell me why that facility is having this feedback and your facility has this feedback. Different patients, tell us, and that kind of brings that objectivity to the improvement and a good leverage, that kind of impersonal leverage to drive those improvements. It shows them this is the end users and patients. That's what they think about you. So that is helpful to do it. And there are some real responses from the patients I can share. We have a few real responses that we kind of pulled together. For example, from this, some in hospital network in California, some of them in Texas clinic, some of them in the hospital in Missouri. And you can see this is something that folks can download on demand. And it shows exactly down to even the restroom stall or like pharmacy pickup. The questions can be anything, but if we look in the context of the facility, if we choose, say, the facility, this is what you can expect. That's the real data, and that's also colors. That's the colors that we see. Many, as you can see, oftentimes, people think that, if you put those in the restrooms, you only see the problems. No, hey, that's real data. It shows that a lot of people do take time to actually give good feedback like that. But also there is some good actionable feedback. It's straightforward and it's an action. What you gonna do, right? And that's, you better hear about it than just silently having that mess sitting there for an hour till the next, or for 5 hours till the next cleaning cycle. Because people usually, who would ever come to the staff to talk about it? No, people just would not be comfortable. But that comfortable way to do it gives this ability. Now that we have this data for a certain period of time, there is, of course, analytics that can happen right there, by day of the week, by the hour, by location. And now we step into, since there is data, and this is all automatically generated, so it doesn't need to be pivot tables. Already kind of figured what people need. And then, for example, what people complain mostly about, say, toilet paper, power of Excel, just or say where do we see most complaints about dirty facilities? Power of Excel gives us that, hey, these are some areas that you need to look at. So that's the kind of the idea of the reporting, to give you all ability to make good business decisions. And again, organization sees this, compare sites. That's what a central organization will see, and they would be see what is this facility doing that maybe this facility has to learn from, things like that. So that's the real data. Any questions?
Well,
Any-
I've listed.
Would you mind sharing the blue line, what the Airvote index is, where that kind of came from? When we did one of our first pilots back in California, that's actually how it got developed.
Yeah, Airvote index is basically comparing happy responses, giving them 100%, giving 50% to yellow, and giving 0 to red. So it means 0 is the lowest it can go, really bad, and 100 is the highest it can go. So that kind of brings the color to the Airvote index. And it's a standard. It's similar to NSAT. No, I should say CSAT, not NSAT, to CSAT index. Thanks. That's a good question. Denise, you had some question, right?
Yeah, and I wonder if I should hold them to the end because I have a number of different questions.
Okay.
Which would you prefer? Yeah.
Either way. Actually, I would prefer if it's relevant to what we're talking about. Ask now.
Sure. Yeah. So on this page where you were showing the comments, I saw a few of them were in a different language, which English is my only. So they caught my eye that I wouldn't be able to read their comments. Do you have a way to transcribe them for those of us who are English speaking only who might be managing this? And now I'm not seeing any, but I know I saw two.
Yeah, sometimes like this one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it is. We have not heard any needs for that, frankly.
Okay.
So we did not need to take an action there. But everything that you see was at one time or another requested and expressed by a customer. So if it's needed, it's not a very difficult thing to transcribe in the language. So from the technology perspective, that is not a super hard thing, but it's not there now.
Okay. So I'm seeing the application, and like I said in the beginning, when you and I first spoke and you showed me about this, I was seeing immediately application to the hospital. So a card. So often when we do a discharge cleaning on a patient room, there isn't that way, or even if we're cleaning during the day, a standard cleaning, and the patient isn't in the room and they're not seeing what was done, there's that feedback on how do we give the patient the ability to acknowledge that the cleaning met their expectation. And so I can see how somebody can drop a card saying, you know, I cleaned your room today, and here's the Airvote. When you do that, the card would have to be specific to that room, right? So they would, if the team is going to do that, they would need to have printed cards for room specific. Yes?
It is possible that way, or if there is certain zones that from the team, janitorial team has certain zones like North Wing, South Wing, and pediatrics. If that is the zone that they care about when they do the services, you know, having each separate room may really maybe overkill. However, if you're in separate rooms, then you have it. And if it's especially if it's permanently assigned, then you know if there's a problem, you know exactly where to go to. So, but if they especially move around, it is also possible to make say if it's 50 rooms in a certain area, janitorial EVS area. So make that 50 the same QR codes, and that would just indicate the area.
Okay, excellent.
Good point.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions?
That's it for me for now.
Yeah, if you think of some, feel free to interrupt and ask, or ask in the comments. Yeah, we'll be happy to answer after the meeting. This one is just we put together everything in one kind of page, so that you have it as a document after this meeting. If you forward it to your team, to management, so that you can kind of see a one-pager of what Airvote is. So, and we talked about the service logging as an optional, that button that shows the service history. That's an optional add-on that that we also can do. Since we already have QR codes, why not? We had many requests from the facilities to actually, hey, can we also register it for our teams when they log the services? A lot of healthcare facilities, they have already software that they use for service management. So we oftentimes are asked to integrate with the existing service management software in many industries. So, but if there is also a need to have a software that allows the team members, environmental services teams, to log the services, here it is. They can put a QR code and it connects, it logs the services, and optionally even can bring that log into the reader to the end user themselves, like I showed you before. So that's something that that happens. What makes us unique? It's the presentations, the presentation of QR code that most of the people used to is a single QR code. So, and that people perceive it as a portal, an entryway into something. And sometimes more and more often, okay, it's going to be either information, watch this so-and-so, or it's going to be some kind of a survey. Confirm who you are, where you are, which facility you are, what's day today, and so forth. And people already have that kind of the apprehension about QR codes. We try to show them as a button that to really drive the idea, hey, that's just a button. But once they click a button in the comfort of their device, we can gently pull them into the further conversation while they are already scanned on the go. It cuts down escalation churn. What oftentimes happens, people who are approaching staff about the facilities, they don't have always a janitorial team or next to them. Where do they go? They go to nursing staff. So now the nursing staff is spending their time escalating the issue, trying to find out the right people to escalate it to, and they're basically taking care of patients. So now it's time diverted from care into running around and trying to escalate, hand off the facility issue. That direct connection has proven in pretty much all the industries, especially where this handoff usually happens, like events, and like what I described, that directly saves time, gives time back to nursing staff. And cost effective as any QR smiley compared to an electronic device. Your QR codes require zero maintenance, and they are literally in hundreds of locations in some airports, for example, in every stall. So that's and that you put it in there once, assigned, and then it's non-touch. It's always there. The reader is always there. No maintenance needed, and it's continuous gathering information. And the service logging just as an optional, additional luxury to have once you have the QR code. And finally, it is really what we hear from the customers, that we are not putting the software to them. We position ourselves as a business analytics outsource in terms of the patient experience and the customer feedback. So that's why we say oftentimes administration having another person to the service, to the access. So it's people just call us rather than they can do it themselves. But more and more we see people prefer to call us to say, can you guys do that? And we do that, you know, with understanding that it's a business that we that they need to focus on. So that's it pretty much. I just wanted to turn it back to you, Angelique, to have that open discussion.
Yeah, so now, yeah, when you heard kind of the possibilities and what we can do as Airvote, really having that real-time feedback from each patient, you know, we showed a couple of examples, what we hear from our customers, what they want to know from their patients. So now I just wanted to see, maybe you have some suggestions and what are really things you would like to know from your patients, and they're not really being asked in, you know, the standard patient feedback forms. So that's now actually, I thought, well, you know, is there, you know, if there was a way for you to hear in real time and from every patient while they are at the facility, what would you like to know? If you don't mind sharing, or I just wanted to open for just discussion, and yeah, let us know. Feel free to put it in the comments. We would love to hear that. I was reading on LinkedIn, and it was a post from somebody else, and they put the tip of the day, and they literally said, ask consumers what they want their experience to be. Mm. And we are just so busy with, you know, trying to figure out, you know, okay, you come into a doctor's office, you know, you want the best healthcare, but now turn the things around. So what do you guys think? I would love to hear, you know.
And I'll try to be,
especially if it's something that you feel won't work, we want to hear that even more, frankly, because this is something that makes us better. It just brings us, you know, to the reality of healthcare. Please share that as well. We want to hear it actually even more.
And I have questions, but I'm going to be quiet for a moment and see if Jeffrey, Gail, Rosanna, or Sebastian have anything that they'd like to ask or contribute to the question you've asked of them.
I have one comment that I think this can be really valuable in healthcare systems, because one of the things I've done a lot of research on in my work is the presence of the importance of dynamic teams that don't necessarily go up to an org chart in healthcare. Where we're having food service, we're having maintenance, we're having housekeeping, we're having nursing, all working together as a dynamic team to deliver care and an experience to a particular patient. Housekeeping does not report to the same team leader that the nurse does, but yet the team as a whole is providing the experience. So I think there's a great opportunity for you folks in healthcare, if you can find a way, and it seems like you can through geofencing or however you're doing it, of being able to provide this information in another way to the dynamic teams. I just think there's an opportunity there, because it's something. There's a lot of metrics as it relates to whether it be patient experience, whether it be employee engagement, whether it be anything inside of healthcare, that healthcare organizations tend to measure things at an organizational level, and that measurement is kind of flawed. That these things should be measured at a team level, and in healthcare, it's very difficult to do that because of the dynamic teams versus the teams that are on an org chart. And I think this might be a way and an opportunity for you to tell that story.
Yeah, that's a great point, to connect different teams, break the corporate lines, and make the customer defined lines, the service lines. Yeah, that's a great point, Jeffrey. Thank you.
And I saw, Gail, you added in the comments, in the inpatient setting, do they understand their plan of care? I interpreted what you placed there as a question that would go to the patient, so that we would be asking them that. Is that what you intended?
Sorry, yes. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. Yes. So a lot of times we find that patients don't understand, or their families don't understand the plan of care.
Mm.
And so that is a dissatisfier during their stay.
Mm.
And we can maybe do a better job of communicating if we know that, and they feel comfortable providing that in a way that's not confrontational.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's a great point. Great point. Yeah.
And Leo, can I ask, in the process, of the patient, where do you see that moment to ask the patient? Or do you say, I just put a sign on the wall? Or can I be so confronting to ask you where you see that in the process?
Really is throughout the inpatient stay, because they may understand it one day, but the plan can change the next day. So it's almost a question, that if we had something on the wall or something where they could just, the very moment they don't understand, they can click that, it can get to the nurse manager so she can help coordinate a patient and family conference to discuss the plan of care. No patient or family should ever, during their inpatient stay or at the moment of discharge, not understand what happened and what the next steps are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is probably the point of discharge or as they exit.
Then it's too late already. Like what's
it is. They're already confused, and then they're not asking the right questions.
Yeah, that's a great question, Gail. We need to think about that one more. Yes.
And actually, that brings up another point, Gail. I'm just thinking next step. Is there an opportunity for a facility who looks at their HCAHPS survey results, and you see that there is certain area in HCAHPS surveys, it's getting the facility getting hit on a certain area. Take that question from HCAHPS and post it in the facility, and really having the kind of a little bit stepping in front of this, but asking that question in the facility. Or is it not the way we should do?
Yeah, you actually you cannot use an exact question from the HCAHPS survey in any of your inquiry. You can use something that is similar, but you cannot use the exact one. Yeah, and you can't use the response levels that are the same on the HCAHPS either.
Yeah. Okay. So you can have something similar that kind of leads you to it, but not exact. Makes sense.
That's correct. And Gail, I loved your question, because what I was trying to noodle with Dimitri and Angelique was, if I'm trying to get information about how were the meals for that patient, or how was the EVS service, or anything else specific to that patient who is in a specific room, then is there a way that the QR code would be always in that room? It's always assigned to that room. And when that gets scanned, the first box that comes up, the patient is identifying its cleaning, or its food service, or its clinical care, of however you would say that. And then there would be that next level that they would say going well, or they wouldn't say that, they would say what's going wrong. But I wonder if, because you haven't showed a layered of that nature, is that a potential?
That's a good option, actually. Great, guy. A suggestion came, we recently did with a demo here in Houston, and similar situation. Their biggest fear was more, if you do put the QR code in the room, now you come on a patient personal level and you have the patient's name. Because, you want to make sure that we don't do that it does stay anonymous, but we want to know where the notification comes from. So the option, correctly what you just said, just putting a QR code in the room, but still the option to keep it anonymous. If patients do want to give out their name, of course they can, And definitely that's where they now actually the food tray discussion came to that. Like, hey, how do we do that? You know, should we, because there's not like a paper, do we put a card? But then the card has a QR code, and we don't know exactly the location.
That's right.
We do have the option to share the geolocation when you scan with your device. But in a hospital, that's very hard to find, because a geolocation, I don't know exactly, Dimitri, but there's a number, has so many meters, you know, so it still can be, you know, 2 rooms next to each other, but point out. So have really a QR code or a set of QR codes in the room, and trying to keep it anonymous and really specify, and like what we just said, like in your case, that you say, hey, you know what, I really want to know the cleanliness of the room. I really want to know something has to do with food. And but you have to be careful too, that it doesn't end up a whole questionnaire again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's our strength, to really catch the moment, you know,
That's
there's
right.
something going on, notify and
That's right.
respond to it.
That's right.
So
That's
you're
right.
kind of trying to find that balance. But I love your idea, you know, to kind of really point it out. But again, how far do you go?
That's right.
We have at airports, and you mentioned the green vote. Sometimes they have questionnaires at the airport too. So they want to send, you know, the traveler to that questionnaire. But at that point, you kind of already lose them. Because they only want to give the opinion, you know, like, how is my TSA experience? Now, good, let me go. You know what I mean? Sorry,
But
Gail, what do you think about the possibility, the practical application in the facility?
So actually, I was thinking about this. You know, it could also, as units are developing, you know, how they communicate plan of care, it could be used as a metric to see with adoption, you know, and it could be used as they roll out different, you know, whatever they're going to do to increase patients' awareness of their plan of care. It could be actually used as a metric to say what we put in place is working or it's not, or it also can create a baseline. Too. So, but again, you can also use it for those just individuals and immediately be able to get to them to explain. But overall, you want to see, you know, sustained improvement, right? And how do you measure sustained improvement with something like this, other than a lagging indicator, which is your patient survey?
That's right.
And this would give you more real time.
That's right.
Yeah, makes sense.
So more of a leading indicator.
Yep. And if we're keeping it anonymous, it could still identify to the patient unit, so that that unit has that feedback. But if we're trying to attach to the patient and ensure that they understand their plan of care, then we lose some of the anonymous element.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which just means we need to consider how it's set up so that that data is contained and fully HIPAA compliant.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
Which is also a possibility. It just brings that another set of checks and balances, which right now there is really the simplicity of it is attractive to many.
Sebastian, I see your comment, and it's just so like you to ask that. I love it. So he said, I would want to know if the patient is feeling seen and that they are in a space to be honest and share with whoever they are interacting with. Does the patient feel psychologically, emotionally safe? Do they feel patronized? Are their anxieties being alleviated? Sebastian, do you feel like that would be an okay question to ask, just kind of generally within a clinic environment? So it's anonymous feedback. It's not specifically to a patient. Or do you feel like that question you would want to know to be able to attribute it back to a patient?
Good follow-up. I wouldn't want to attach it to the patient. I think it's getting the general sense of, you know, are the people entering the spaces feeling these things? And
Mhm.
the way that's worded, you could play with to keep it short and keep
Yeah.
that general as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not bringing it back to, because even asking the question, I could see people on a care team even feeling a bit some type of way about like that we're asking the question, almost like they're taking it
Mhm.
personally, which is entirely understandable. I
Yep.
used to be on the front line as an X-ray technologist. I've been there. But those are the things that I think we can think about in terms of making sure we're addressing patients' anxieties and fears,
Mhm.
creating trust, and then those things can lead to operationalization.
Yeah.
You know, that might be training, you know, that might be creating scripting of like how to address these kinds of things so that there's some standardization.
Mhm.
But these are some of the things I think about that are like outside of the HCAPS
That's
regulatory
right.
space
That's
that
right.
are still important for improving experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. When you're thinking about psychological safety, if they're not feeling safe, they're not going to answer the question or answer it that they aren't feeling psychologically safe,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, we would want that to be anonymous, definitely.
Yeah, and oftentimes you're absolutely right, Sebastian. Like you're like the last, do you feel prioritized? Are your anxieties being alleviated? Oftentimes, people just know they're not. It's not, but it's hard to put it in words.
Mhm.
And it's like speaking different language. They
Mhm.
don't want to confront. You know, they always smile and say thank you, but then they feel something is wrong. But it's oftentimes they cannot even express.
Mhm.
So this
Mhm.
may help them to at least from the other side, from the business, from the healthcare side, just see, hey, there is a problem to dive in, and that is the shining the light part is on those intangible vibes. That's why we created actually this whole thing back in 2019, just to capture the vibe, which is oftentimes unspoken because people just don't want to be confronting. They don't want to look like whiners for whatever reason, and we want to capture that vibe. That was the idea of the whole business. Yeah.
Mm. And
Did
one
you
of
have
the
a question, Jeffrey, or?
No, I was just gonna just make a comment that was a really good idea by Sebastian there, because what we find in data that a lot of organizations have are people are not great raters of other people or services, but what they are 100% great raters of is how something makes them feel.
Mm.
So by asking it in that way, you're getting absolutely unequivocal, accurate data. Because if someone feels safe, if someone feels something, that is the most powerful data you can collect for an organization because it's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So someone could rate a nurse incorrectly because they don't understand what's happening, and give someone a poor rating or a this or, but when you talk about their feelings, it's 100% accurate.
Mm.
Yeah, correct. And actually, you know, just outside then healthcare, this question has been asked at several gas stations in Austin. Some areas, you know, the owners, they really know they are in a challenge area, and especially at night. And they get quite the feedback. Otherwise, they would have never heard. And also with great suggestions, you know, that you still need to, you know, or run into the store to get something at night, or and we initially were also a little bit like, oh, that's something, do you really ask that to your customer? And but yeah, and especially in healthcare, from a patient perspective, I can really address to that too. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, great questions.
So Dimitri, one of the things I noted, I think it was when you had the phone up, that there was a little circle that said your logo here or something like that. So it looks like this can be very customized to look like the organization. It's not Airvote, it's the organization is sharing this with you.
Absolutely. It should be. It would be the. Let me go back to that. This one. Yes.
Sorry, I unshared the screen.
Oh, got it.
You can
So
share again.
No, that it's good. Absolutely. The logo could be the facilities logo. It could be also logo if there is some third party company that is doing the services. It can be their logo as well. But again, it's between the facility and the company what they want to kind of to show to the user.
And then the last thing I was thinking of, you showed the map. So how if you have this deployed in a variety of different entities, and I'm thinking a clinic network has a number of different locations. A hospital system often has a variety of hospitals and perhaps associated clinics. But that person who is centrally responsible for the multiple locations, they likely have leaders under them, but they're the VP. They would be able to have that quick visualization of how each of those entities are doing. And I thought that was really useful for that if you think of it as the pulse of that, they can look and see and know where do I need to go to maybe ask more questions, what's going on with my team today, or give out some positive kudos to somebody who is showing all green.
Yeah, exactly. It was actually the focus on this was born from the feedback when we discussed it with Sonabella clinic network. The first point was, oh, I am the responsible for the whole Sonabella patient experience. I don't want to get all of those information, bunch of data from all my locations. And that kind of brought in no, you do the governance. You can see it, but really each location is responsible for their own stuff, and that is really was made a great great sense to them.
And I think that also comes back to what you mentioned, Jeffrey, to bring people together, because you have this managing view. But then, different departments say, hey, what, can I also watch you? And so we see each other's data, because, indirectly we all have the same goal. But how can we learn from each other and improve each other? So kind of that's what you mentioned, like the ultimate goal is to make sure to bring then the different levels or different departments together.
Yeah, and that's where I think organizations, especially healthcare organizations that measure certain things to do with their people, go wrong, because they measure it organizationally, but if you measure it at a team level, you can figure out to what Denise said, you can figure out where it's working. And one of the things I always do when I'm building programs for healthcare organizations is, how do we make more of our teams like our best teams? That's the goal. So with something like this, if you can define where the best teams are, then they become the model. But if you just have this overarching organizational metric, you have nothing.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So we're at the top of the hour. Obviously, Dimitri and Angelique, we could continue this conversation. You've touched a nerve. You showed what you've created, and it spawned ideas for other, which is fantastic. But for the event, we're going to say we've officially concluded it. And I thank you so much for joining us, for sharing this. I look forward to sharing the video out nicely. The recording, because it's a vendor feature, will go out to everybody who's registered. So those who are unable to join us today will still have access to learn from what you've shared with us. Thank you for that.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And now we get to transition to speed networking.